I'm a little fucked up. But will you take care of me forever and ever?
Respect to Jake Paul, because that last shot, I know he broke his chat and his jaw, but it would have knocked most heavyweights out. So I've got to give him credit.
I think he feels, you know, disappointed that he lost. But as I said to him, he should be very proud.
Pissed him off. Then he broke my brother's jaw. His jaw, huh? Yeah, he broke his jaw. Yeah. You don't care. Jason did that.
Broke his jaw.
So here's what went down. Jake Paul took one of the most devastating beatings we've ever seen in boxing when Anthony Joshua completely destroyed him. We're talking about a broken jaw in two different spots that put him straight in the hospital. This was supposed to be Jake's moment to show he belonged with real fighters, but instead it turned into a complete disaster that exposed every flaw he had. Millions of viewers watched AJ systematically break down everything Jake thought he knew about boxing. This wasn't some close decision or technical loss where you can make excuses. This was brutal, overwhelming domination that happened on the biggest stage possible. Everything Jake spent years building as a boxer just got shattered in one night, and now everyone's wondering if he should hang up the gloves forever.
I think my jaw is broken, by the way, so yeah, it's definitely broke. But
the aftermath was brutal to witness. Jake Paul looked absolutely broken, both physically and mentally, after getting completely dismantled by Anthony Joshua's superior skill and power. Here's a guy who built his entire brand around being this unstoppable fighter, constantly running his mouth on every platform, acting like he was invincible. But when he stepped up against real championship-level competition, all that talk meant nothing. The fight ended with Jake getting humiliated in the worst way possible, while the whole world watched it happen. You could actually see the moment reality hit him, and it was painful to watch. Within minutes, social media went absolutely crazy with people absolutely roasting him because the loudmouth YouTube star just got the wake-up call of a lifetime. This is something that's gonna stick with him and everyone else for years to come.
But I'm scared.
Boxing ego breaks down the harsh truth that Jake Paul didn't just lose a regular fight or drop a controversial decision. He got completely destroyed in the most devastating way you can imagine. We're looking at his jaw being fractured in two different places, which is absolutely catastrophic for any fighter and potentially career-ending. This sent him straight to the hospital, dealing with serious pain and total humiliation in front of the entire combat sports community. People everywhere are completely shocked by how one-sided and brutal this beating actually was. Every social media platform is flooded with memes at lightning speed, and the self-proclaimed YouTube warrior now has to confront the brutal reality of what actual elite-level boxing looks like when you're not facing other internet personalities or washed-up fighters. AJ didn't just get the victory, he sent a message that's gonna resonate throughout the sport forever, and Jake's gonna be remembered for this catastrophic failure way more than any trash talk or promotional hype ever could.
The kid has a broken jaw, it appears, after fighting Anthony Joshua, right? I made this graphic for you guys. You see it. Got his jaw broken in two places.
Care of me forever and ever? A little fucked up. But will you take care of me forever and ever? A little fucked up.
Anthony Joshua didn't get lucky or catch Jake sleeping. He delivered what you'd have to call a systematic, calculated destruction that demonstrated years of championship-level training and experience. The knockout shot landed with perfect precision right on Jake Paul's jaw, shattering it in two different spots and dropping him to the canvas in a way that made everyone watching cringe. Every aspect of this fight, from the preparation to the finish, showed AJ's incredible accuracy, perfect timing, and the kind of devastating power that only comes from being a legitimate heavyweight champion. The medical reports that surfaced later just confirmed how extensive the damage really was, and believe me, it's even worse than people initially realized. Everyone who witnessed this live, whether they were ringside or watching from home, absolutely could not believe what they were seeing unfold. This wasn't just a fight, it was a complete clinic. A harsh lesson showing a social media fighter exactly where his ceiling is when he faces genuine world championship competition, and he hit that ceiling very quickly.
Joshua broke Jake Paul's jaw in two places, and I'm about to show you the x-ray in a second, but firstly, let's watch the knockout. Right there, straight on the jaw, straight on the money. Even Jake Paul Could not believe what happened. Jake Paul's jaw, you can see it is broken.
Nekisa Bidarian, who promotes Jake Paul and obviously has every reason to protect his fighter's reputation, does everything he can to find some positive angle on what was clearly a catastrophic night for everyone in Jake's corner. Look, Jake definitely showed guts just by taking this fight, and nobody can deny that part of it. But let's not pretend or try to spin what everyone saw with their own eyes. The guy got absolutely destroyed and embarrassed in front of millions of people around the globe. No amount of social media buzz or viral content can magically make those 2 jaw fractures disappear, erase the physical proof of how badly he got beaten, or change the fact that AJ showed he was completely outmatched in every single aspect of the sport. Sure, he deserves some credit for having the courage to step in there, but the damage to his reputation and credibility in the boxing community is massive and probably irreversible.
The fact that Jake is safe, and more so that he showed his heart. I don't know if you guys were looking on Twitter, but until about 20 minutes ago, the #1 trending thing on Twitter wasn't Jake Paul getting knocked out, wasn't Jake Paul, wasn't Anthony Joshua. It literally was the phrase,
Dave Allen, who understands this sport at every level, tells it straight that this wasn't even close to being competitive. It was completely one-sided from the first bell until that final devastating finish. Jake Paul might be in decent shape and somewhat strategic for a YouTuber who's had some boxing training, but that's nowhere near enough when you're facing a world-class heavyweight champion like AJ, who's been operating at the elite level for years. All the conditioning and clever movement in the world can't cover up the basic reality that he got systematically broken down and picked apart. Allen's respectful comments just make it even more obvious how badly Jake was outclassed in there, showing everyone the enormous difference between internet boxing and the actual professional heavyweight ranks.
The fight was, it weren't a fight, was it? Really one-sided. Jake Paul, yeah, I've got to give him credit really, because he's super fit. He's pretty clever, really. Like, to make a good,
Anthony Joshua, showing the class he's known for, gives Jake Paul credit for his heart and determination when facing impossible odds. But let's keep it real and not ignore what everyone witnessed firsthand. The guy was completely overwhelmed in every element of boxing you can think of. Yeah, he got back up after getting dropped, which shows toughness, and he displayed real courage by continuing when most fighters would have called it quits. But this was still a total nightmare for him in every way possible. AJ's perfect technique, flawless timing, and crushing power made the skill gap painfully clear to everyone watching. All this talk about spirit and effort highlights Jake's refusal to give up, and that's respectable as a person. But heart and determination couldn't bridge the massive difference in experience, ability, and natural heavyweight strength. People all over the world are now arguing about whether Jake's courage and persistence even matters when the end result is a potentially career-destroying loss that put him in the hospital with major injuries.
I could have knocked him out at the start, but as we saw tonight, Jake has spirit. He has some heart. He tried his best, and I take my hat off to him because, number one, a lot of fighters haven't got in the ring with me, and Jake did.
Eddie Hearn, who's a promotional genius, does his best to present this whole situation as a significant moment for the sport. But let's cut through the marketing speak. Jake Paul got completely exposed in the most embarrassing way imaginable. Hearn's comments about what he calls an impressive career sound more like desperate PR damage control than any kind of honest assessment based on reality. This fight demonstrated AJ's total superiority and Jake's limitations with crystal clear precision, leaving people everywhere wondering how much longer he can realistically compete professionally without facing permanent injury. The retirement conversation is now hanging over Jake's future, and it's not being discussed as something he might choose on his own terms, but more as a necessity after absorbing punishment that no amount of promotion, marketing genius, or massive online following can possibly spin into a positive story.
Obviously for British fight fans, because we've got a chance to make the biggest fight in boxing, but you know, if that is the last we see of him, he's had a great career. I doubt it. But, you know, it's always best to come into retirement to make sure someone pays you to come out of retirement.
Ariel Helwani nails it when he talks about the genuine intimidation factor that AJ brought to that ring, and you could absolutely feel the danger coming off him. Every shot that Jake attempted looked completely meaningless compared to a prime heavyweight champion with frightening power and massive physical advantages. The threat of serious damage was present during every second of this fight, and each exchange put Jake's health and future at real risk. Everyone watching this develop knew instinctively that this wasn't just another loss you bounce back from. It was a harsh education in the limits of social media hype versus real elite ability built over years. Jake's offense had zero impact on AJ. His shots seemed to have no effect whatsoever, and the constant possibility of a fight-ending knockout made the whole thing feel like watching a disaster waiting to happen. Everyone was just anticipating that inevitable moment when AJ would connect perfectly and shut everything down.
Every time he threw a punch, I like wince, because he's a big man and he's an incredible boxer and he's still in his prime, and he's got a very long reach, and he's got a lot of power in that right hand, and that left hook is terrifying as well.
David Haye, a former heavyweight champion who knows exactly what it takes, recognizes Jake Paul's attempt to use smart tactics and strategy, but it backfired completely and spectacularly. Trying to use movement and footwork, staying at distance, and hoping to catch one perfect shot that could turn everything around simply isn't sufficient when you're dealing with an experienced heavyweight champion with years of top-level competition. Jake took these crushing, bone-rattling shots throughout the entire fight and wound up with a shattered jaw and bleeding, which was a graphic demonstration of just how overmatched he really was. Haye shows him some respect for making the attempt because that's the professional thing to do, but even he cannot hide the reality that this was a complete disaster from beginning to end. This fight wasn't a test for AJ. It wasn't competitive, it just revealed Jake's weaknesses in the most brutal fashion possible, leaving all his promotional hype totally destroyed and his boxing credibility carefully hanging on.
To do, he got a knockout, everyone was expecting it. It's very difficult to pin someone down when they're not trying to engage. Jake's game plan was a good one, was to use lateral movement and hope to land a big overhand right at some stage to catch AJ off guard. Didn't quite work out, but you got to give Jake credit. Took some big shots there. I think he's got a broken jaw, so he's spitting blood at the end of the fight. No, anything's possible. He gave it a go. He dared to be great. Didn't work out for him, understandably. That's why he was such a massive underdog.
Eddie Hearn gives Jake Paul some credit for his unexpected durability and decent ring movement, acknowledging that he lasted longer than some expected. But we need to be completely honest about what this really was. This was a complete mismatch from the opening moment. Jake might have moved around somewhat effectively and displayed genuine heart and effort, but AJ's superior technique, crushing power, and years of championship experience totally overshadowed anything Jake attempted. This fight revealed in harsh detail exactly how far Jake really is from competing at genuine elite levels in professional boxing. AJ might have looked slightly rusty at times because he hadn't been active recently, but he still broke Jake down systematically and scientifically. Hearn tries to sound impressed with AJ's showing, but the underlying message is crystal clear to anyone paying attention. Jake got exposed on the biggest stage possible. People who bought into all the hype and actually believed Jake was a legitimate contender saw the brutal truth play out. Being physically fit and moving around decently isn't remotely enough against world-class heavyweight competition. The fight might have gone a few more rounds than some predicted, but the result was determined from the opening bell, leaving Jake's reputation completely shattered. This wasn't any kind of moral victory for Jake whatsoever. It was a painful education that hype, online followers, and heart alone simply cannot keep you competitive in the highest levels against real championship caliber opposition.
Respect to Jake, you know, he was a tough guy in there. Obviously, he moved a lot and made it difficult for AJ. And AJ's been out of the ring for a while, he's a bit rusty. It took him time to just get hold of him, but I was impressed with Jake. And
Vidal Riley makes a crucial point that AJ's performance wasn't just another routine victory on his record. It was a massive demonstration of his complete superiority to a much broader audience than boxing typically attracts. Jake Paul, despite all his internet fame, millions of subscribers, and constant self-promotion, became the perfect illustration of how online hype and social media celebrity don't convert to elite boxing ability. This event allowed AJ to connect with viewers who don't usually follow traditional boxing, bringing in entirely new demographics, but it also brutally revealed Jake's serious shortcomings for the whole world to witness. Moving around the ring, avoiding some shots, and absorbing punishment as someone relatively new to heavyweight competition isn't nearly sufficient equipment to compete at this level. Real boxing at the championship level demands skill, perfect timing, and devastating precision, and those qualities dominate everything else. Jake fought desperately just to survive, but the damage was visible and obvious to everyone watching. Riley's observation about AJ reaching a completely new audience emphasizes that even casual viewers who don't typically watch boxing witnessed a genuine masterclass in why elite fighters operate in an entirely different universe. Jake's brand and reputation might survive on YouTube hype and social media engagement, but in actual boxing reality, inside that ring under those bright lights, he was completely outmatched in every conceivable way.
AJ's win today was the bread. AJ's win today was the exposure to more people. Even though he's mad famous, as we know, like, there's a community he hasn't touched, and I think he touched that community.
Joseph Parker, who's actually been in there with AJ and understands what that experience is like, perfectly explains the game plan that AJ executed against Jake Paul. This wasn't some lucky connection or accidental knockout, it was deliberate, methodical destruction based on years of professional experience. AJ worked systematically to wear him down, displaying incredible patience and ring intelligence that only comes from being a true professional. He stalked Jake around the ring and timed his devastating shots perfectly to cause maximum damage with every connection. Jake's lack of experience was painfully obvious in ways that were difficult to watch. Movement alone couldn't save him from the repeated heavy shots that kept finding their target. Parker emphasizes that even a physically prepared and genuinely brave opponent like Jake simply has no answer when facing elite power combined with tactical mastery. The heavily promoted fight that was marketed as this massive event was actually a clinical demonstration of fundamental boxing principles: timing, distance management, and relentless offensive pressure. For casual fans watching at home, it might have seemed like entertaining drama, but people who really understand boxing saw Jake's weaknesses highlighted and magnified with every exchange. His toughness and survival instincts prolonged the inevitable conclusion for several rounds, but AJ's dominance was complete and undeniable throughout. Parker's expert breakdown confirmed that Jake's internet celebrity is absolutely no replacement for real skill, experience, and power in the heavyweight ranks.
I thought Joshua did what he had to do. It took him a while to get it, but he had to break him down and chase it down and unleash those powerful.
Logan Paul, who's Jake's brother and naturally wants to defend him, attempts to present Jake's performance as this incredible display of heart and resilience, but we shouldn't get swept up in the storytelling here. Sure, lasting against AJ for several rounds and remaining upright as long as he did demonstrates real toughness and grit, but that toughness doesn't eliminate the complete humiliation of being totally outclassed and suffering Caesar injury with multiple jaw fractures. Logan's comments focus on the entertainment and spectacle aspects of the event, rather than the harsh truth. Jake absorbed repeated shots with absolutely crushing power, injured his ankle severely, and broke his jaw in 2 separate places during the process. This has way less to do with heroics and courage, and way more to do with how genuinely unprepared he was for championship-level competition in this division. No amount of internet fame, millions of followers, or decent movement can compensate for missing elite boxing skills that take years of serious training to develop. While Logan understandably praises his brother's bravery and determination because that's what brothers do, the fight itself highlights the enormous gap between promotional hype and professional excellence. Jake might have survived and made it through multiple rounds, but the in-ring reality is absolutely harsh and impossible to deny. AJ's superiority left zero questions in anyone's mind about who actually controls the heavyweight division. People everywhere are now questioning whether Jake's confidence and bravado is worth the severe physical punishment he absorbed during that fight.
AJ, in my opinion, won 4 of them. People will argue that. He at least won 3. No one expected him to last that long. Rolled his ankle, broke his jaw, still fucking fighting, man. Like, that's toughness. You know, most people wouldn't have the balls ever to step in a boxing ring in their life. He stepped in a boxing ring with one of the baddest men on the planet. Who's 40 pounds heavier than him, is 6.
The Wade concept perfectly describes the reality that Jake Paul's entire approach was just trying to survive from the very first bell. He tried to extend the rounds, constantly moving and circling, desperately hoping to connect with one significant shot that could somehow change the whole dynamic. But in doing this, he only made his serious limitations as a fighter more obvious to everyone watching. AJ's rhythm was slightly thrown off by Jake's constant movement. That's accurate, but the fight still demonstrated in brutal clarity the massive difference in skill level, power, and professional experience. Jake's survival methods were impressive in terms of social media content, something his supporters could highlight, but in real professional boxing terms, they were totally inadequate for competing at this championship level. He wasn't outboxing AJ or even competing effectively, he was simply postponing the inevitable punishment that was always coming. Wade's honest assessment acknowledges that AJ wasn't operating at full capacity, but here's the reality: even a somewhat rusty, not quite peak AJ still completely dominated Jake without breaking a sweat. People expecting to see a total destroyer completely annihilating Jake in the first round were surprised by how long it actually went, but that duration was more about Jake enduring serious damage and pain than actually any success or competing meaningfully. This fight proved the harsh reality that everyone suspected all along: hype and bravery, while admirable qualities, simply cannot substitute for elite training, years of experience, and natural heavyweight strength. Jake's desperate efforts to land that one perfect right hand were completely unsuccessful and pointless, demonstrating beyond question that in real professional boxing, he's not currently and may never be in the same category as true championship level competition.
Heavyweight champion. Same league as AJ. The whole thing, but I think Jake fought a very, how do I survive long enough to land a right hand type of fight, and it made it a little difficult for AJ to get his timing. No excuses. AJ didn't look great, I'll be honest. He didn't look great. Didn't look like, an AJ we thought we were going to get, the marauder, the guy that was going to come forward and bang out Jake in one round.
After witnessing Jake Paul's brutal knockout,
the hospitalization after this event has the entire combat sports community absolutely shocked and discussing what happened. We're looking at 2 fracture points in his jaw, a humiliating, devastating loss, and the brutal truth about what occurs when you face a legitimate heavyweight champion. Jake discovered the hardest way imaginable that internet celebrity and social media popularity cannot compete with real elite ability built over years of dedication. People everywhere are actively arguing whether his toughness and willingness to accept the fight shows courage or just reckless endangerment of his own safety. But one fact is absolutely obvious and impossible to argue with. Anthony Joshua's superiority during this entire fight was completely total and undeniable. What's your take on everything that went down? Was Jake's performance courageous and admirable, showing genuine heart, or was it simply a dangerous mismatch that everyone saw coming from the day this fight got announced? Share your thoughts in the comments section and tell us whether you think he should ever compete professionally again after sustaining this kind of damage.